Vanguard, Blackrock, and State Street are absolute monsters when it comes to the stock market. Either one of them are the largest shareholder in 88% of S&P 500 companies. But Vanguard funds like their ETFs, mutual funds, and index funds get the worst rating when it comes to how they vote on certain company matters compared to other fund providers such as Blackrock and State Street. Let me show you what this means, why it matters for your financial future, and give you my unfiltered thoughts on the topic, because as a Vanguard investor, I'm actually extremely happy that they rank at the very bottom of this list. It all has to do with that dirty little acronym which causes most of us to roll our freaking eyes when it comes to our investments. ESG, environmental, social, and corporate governance. Is this video going to get me canceled? As a shareholder of a company, you are entitled to a piece of the company's potential profits as well as their assets. On top of that, you get the right to vote on certain business decisions within the company. For any of you who have owned individual shares of a company, you may have been asked in the past to vote on different topics. For any of you who own a fund that holds many different stocks, you most likely haven't had to vote on matters within each of those companies. That's because fund companies like Vanguard, Blackrock, and State Street are casting proxy votes on your behalf if you invest in any of their funds. As an example, since I own VTI, which is an ETF offered by Vanguard, I allow them to cast votes on my behalf for the 3,883 stocks held within that ETF. Allowing these fund providers to cast votes on your behalf can be helpful to regular investors like us for a few different reasons. First, most of us don't have the time, patience, or knowledge to cast an intelligent vote on our own. I don't know about you, but there's no way in heck I'm gonna sit there and vote on topics for the over 10,000 stocks that I own within my traditional index funds and their equivalent ETFs. The second reason this is helpful is because fund providers like Vanguard have dedicated teams to handle all of this work for us. The whole job of these men and women are to spend the time doing the research and casting the votes in the investor's best interest. Some of these matters are very nuanced as well, so outsourcing it to those professionals could make more sense. Side note, Vanguard is actually piloting a program right now with 3 of their index funds that will allow investors to cast votes on different matters, so we'll actually get to test out and see how this type of thing goes. A big issue with proxy voting comes into play when you don't agree with how the fund company is voting on your behalf. Enter in the topic of ESG scores and pushing companies to become more ESG friendly through proxy voting. Now, this isn't an issue if an investor is putting their money into an ESG specific fund, but it could become problematic if someone like me is investing in a total US stock fund which should be agnostic to ESG decisions, and the fund company is choosing to vote in favor of those matters when it might not make sense. Morningstar reviewed how the 3 biggest fund managers recently voted in regards to ESG decisions for companies within their funds. Just so everyone understands, BlackRock manages the iShare ETFs some of you may have seen before. State Street manages the SPDR or SPDR ETFs. The most well-known one is SPY, and Vanguard of course manages the funds with the name Vanguard in them. Combined, these 3 fund companies manage roughly $21 trillion for investors. With this much money on the line, how these companies vote can have a huge impact on decisions made within publicly traded companies. Fun fact, since Blackrock and State Street are publicly traded companies, Vanguard is the largest shareholder in each of them. Here are the number of ESG-related proposals each fund manager supported. It's not surprising that Blackrock and State Street are at the top of that list, since they've made it publicly known that ESG is something that they want to push on all publicly traded companies. Here's the breakdown on different ESG topics and which companies supported which resolutions. Some of you might be wondering why Vanguard is at the bottom of the list when it comes to voting in favor of pro-ESG topics. Are they just terrible people? Did they not care about the world and the future of humanity? No, not at all. And in my opinion, they're choosing to take a more rational and hands-off approach when it comes to how they vote on behalf of their shareholders. On their website, they state that we take a principles-based approach to investment stewardship, focusing on long-term value creation for Vanguard advised funds. In 2022, their global head of investment stewardship summed it up very simply. we have no agenda beyond shareholder return, period. This doesn't mean that they won't vote on ESG related topics as we saw in the recent proposals that they supported, but if it isn't in the best interest of shareholder return, then they are not going to get involved.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Vanguard goes one step further to defend their reasoning behind why they do or do not support certain ESG matters. According to Morningstar, although the firm's record of support for key ESG shareholder resolutions continues to be lower than their comparable peers, its disclosure of the rationale behind such voting decisions is strong. If you want to help support my little dog Molly as well as this channel, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button. You also have to keep in mind that the ownership structure of Vanguard the company is set up completely differently from Blackrock and State Street. Blackrock and State Street are publicly traded companies who have to answer to the public markets. Vanguard, on the other hand, is owned by the Vanguard funds that they manage. And who owns the actual Vanguard funds? The individuals who invest in them. Since I own their funds like VTI and VXUS, I'm technically an owner of Vanguard the company. Because of that, they're incentivized to act in a way that benefits me as an owner. Vanguard investors have a wide range of views, so it would be dumb for them to even attempt to take a specific stance on certain ESG issues in regards to their non-ESG funds. Now, I want to take the topic of ESG and bury it in the ground where it belongs.
What is going on? What are you doing?
In my opinion, and based on what I'm about to show you, all it's good for is tugging on the heartstrings of rational people who have a good conscience. First, in 2020, Vanguard published research concluding that ESG investing does not have any advantage over broad-based investing. There's also been quite a few papers studying the logic of ESG funds and the companies within them. Here's a few key takeaways from a paper titled, "Do ESG Funds Make Stakeholder-Friendly Investments?" They said, "We find no evidence that ESG-focused companies as a whole outperform companies that are less focused on ESG as a driving force in their business decisions."
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Surprise, surprise, they also found that companies added to ESG portfolios did not subsequently improve compliance with labor or environmental regulations. In fact, they find that ESG-focused companies have significantly more violations of labor and environmental laws and pay more money in fines for these violations relative to companies less focused on ESG business decisions. Interesting, because according to some people out there, ESG is the future and it's gonna save the planet and make things more fair in the world. Well, according to facts and not your feelings, this is just not the case at all. I personally stay away from any ESG focused fund. They're essentially a marketing play from the financial industry to charge you high fees where they reward you with lower returns. You get doubly screwed. It's also a weird way for some people to push certain agendas on all of us. Only investing in companies who put on a show by publicly claiming how ESG friendly they are is a waste. Instead, vote with your dollars by taking the money that you earn through investing and spend it with the companies who you believe are doing a very good job with ESG if that's something that's important to you. Voting with your dollars will do more good for whatever cause you support than trying to fit companies into these weird boxes the financial industry and media tries to create. None of this is to say that companies should throw out all morality when it comes to certain decisions. I want the world to become a better place just as much as the next guy or girl. But in competitive product and labor markets, leadership within businesses will naturally take it upon themselves to handle the types of things that go into getting a high ESG score. Public policy also has a bigger impact on ESG related concerns than any arbitrary score we try to give companies, so you should spend more time thinking about who you're voting for during election cycles. One more thing that's probably an unpopular opinion and might get me canceled, but whatever. Just a friendly reminder that you don't have to have an opinion or a stance on ESG topics or anything else going on in the world. Deciding not to have an opinion nowadays is looked at as a terrible thing. But it's not. What is a terrible thing is getting shamed into having to give a barely thought out opinion on a topic that you don't know enough about. If anything, saying, "I don't know," or "I actually don't have an opinion," shows that you're willing to admit your lack of knowledge on whatever hot button topic is going on today. Or it just shows that you don't give a shit because you're too busy focusing on improving the small area of the world that you can directly impact in a positive way. If you want to know how to become a millionaire only investing in 2 funds, then watch this video to your left next. More free resources to help with all of your investing and personal finance needs are down in the description below. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.